All right, so we're still following this closely here on LiveNOW from Fox as we're diving into the latest as chaos erupted there in St. Paul as federal police operation involving ICE attracted a large group of protesters. Not exactly clear what prompted the action, but several people suffered injuries. At least one individual was arrested. Let's take you live there on the ground in the Twin Cities by Fox 9's Corin Hoggard. Corin, thank you so much for joining us. What can you tell us about what happened today?
Yeah, Andy, a lot of the details are still unclear. We do know that most of it happened right behind me right here in the Payne-Phelan neighborhood of St. Paul. There were hundreds of protesters and dozens, if not hundreds, of police officers out here. It started as a federal operation. We know Homeland Security was out here, ICE was out here, the federal marshals were out here. Do not know who was leading the operation or what they were targeting here at all. But at some point, St. Paul police officers got a report that there were rocks being thrown at the federal officers. And so St. Paul officers descended on this place. And that's where the main chaos really erupted. We had St. Paul police officers all seemed like they were armed with pepper spray, and they were using it pretty liberally. You know, they did say that there were rocks thrown at some of the agents. They did say that some of the St. Paul police officers were being approached aggressively by some of these protesters out here. I will say, though, at least one of the people who I saw who had gotten pelted by non-lethal projectiles and hit with pepper spray was a journalist from the local NPR radio station. Also, two of the people who got pepper sprayed are state representatives who represent the St. Paul area, and they told me that they were right up to a line where police had established a perimeter where some of the federal agents were talking to someone who was involved in the operation somehow, and somebody had a foot up against the line, and instead of asking them to back up, they said the St. Paul police officers just pepper sprayed everyone. So I saw a couple state representatives in tears shortly after that happened. They were in front of the house where that one arrest was made. We don't know exactly what that arrest was based on. I did talk to some of the family members out there and a lawyer who said he represented the man. From what they were saying, this person was involved in some sort of a hit and run yesterday and happens to be from Honduras. And that is really the extent of what we know. ICE, of course, doesn't really give any details about their operations. St. Paul Police, we're still waiting to hear from them, although they said that they'd put out a press release here. Haven't heard that yet. And the family members of the man who was arrested said that they would put on a press conference, but we're still waiting for that to happen too. So you know how these situations tend to be. We don't get a lot of information. There's a lot of speculation. And, you know, rumors kind of fill the gap, and I'm trying not to give you any of the rumors here, but that is all we have at this moment.
Yeah, that is a very good point. Even the governor, Tim Walz, who posted this on social media saying they're working to monitor the situation. They received no heads up from federal authorities on this operation. So, Corin, you're not alone. Very few people are aware of what's going on, especially at the state level. I do want to ask you, what led you guys to the scene? Because obviously you have that video of what was going on. You saw the protest. How did people learn that this was all happening?
Yeah, there is a good network of folks who find out when these operations are taking place, and I'm curious myself where they're getting a heads up, but some of them started posting on social media, and we headed right over here when we saw that. I don't know how they get tipped off that there's an operation, but that is where we get a lot of our information, knowing where to go for. This is the second one in 2 weeks here in St. Paul, and so it seems like there is some kind of active activity out here. The first one, we still don't know exactly what happened there either, although there were a couple of arrests in that case as well. It looks like there may be some type of criminal investigation that just happens to involve ICE in, you know, search warrant service or something along those lines.
All right, Corin, my last question before I let you go, because we've kind of chronicled some of these around the country. You mentioned the second or third time in a couple weeks. Is this a frequent occasion to kind of be reporting on a potential ICE operation? Is this something that you see frequently in the Twin Cities?
I can say they haven't been common, but that is definitely something we have been anticipating, both on the political side and then here on the streets of the Twin Cities, because, you know, the politicians here have been anticipating ICE being sent into town. Right now, we haven't gotten word that there's actually some kind of full-scale ICE operation here. It seems to be, you know, little operations involving all or many of the federal agencies and not just ICE. But we are anticipating more involvement from ICE, maybe after they leave Charlotte. We are expecting them to come to the Twin Cities at some point. We don't know exactly when.
All right, very good, Corin. Thank you so much. Obviously, piecing it together with very limited information at this point. I appreciate your time, your reporting here on Live Now. All right, thank you so much. All right, great reporting on what we saw, chaos erupting there. Live picture at the skyline of St. Paul, Minnesota today. And as Corin was gathering some of the sound, we did pull a little bit in, including from the mayor of St. Paul, Melvin Carter. I do want to put up this post here from our Fox 9 team. They're saying a large crowd gathered in St. Paul. The mayor, Melvin Carter, went to the scene to assess what happened. They said he's still trying to sort the events out. We saw a different state representative potentially getting tear gas, having some of that in their eyes. Let's take you out to this sound from a little bit earlier. I believe this is Corin asking some of the questions. Let's listen in to what they asked of the mayor on the ground at this apparent ICE operation.
We're trying to figure out.
Went and got some food.
What'd you say? Can you just give me a quick recap? We're trying to figure out what happened. The ICE agents showed up in St. Paul the way they have before and the way they are in other communities and things like that. We're trying to get our arms around kind of what ended up happening after that.
Right. What about the community reaction? Have you gotten any handle on that?
Community members are frustrated. And, this is what we see ICE agents doing all over the country, is showing up, creating havoc, creating chaos, and leaving us with, leaving local communities trying to figure out how to kind of navigate the trauma that they create. And that's part of the troubling practice that they're creating. I will say that we just saw chemical munitions and things like that were used. And one of the things that I share with the crowd is I have questions, same as everybody else does, about what precipitated that and why. I'm not going to try to, explain every single thing, or I'm not going to try to justify every single thing. That's why we have investigative processes. That's why we have body cam footage. That's why we have the use of force policies that we put in place. Frankly, I believe that our police department is good at holding ourselves accountable for actions, making sure that our actions kind of fall within kind of our use of force policies. I'm not suggesting that they don't, but I'm suggesting that what's important to me, what I've said from the beginning, is transparency, and so that we can fully understand what happens and why.
You may have already covered this, but two state reps, Athena, Hollins, and Liish Kozlowski, told me that St. Paul police are the ones who pepper sprayed them. So does that raise your level of concern here?
I guess my level of concern started at a 10, so I don't know that my level of concern could be raised. It certainly gives us some action items to follow up on to understand what exactly precipitated that and to understand exactly why and how that happened. And like I said, I don't have the ability to speak on that one way or the other. I imagine our police department will be sharing something about kind of what precipitated that, but that's one of the questions that we'll have.
You guys weren't coordinating with the federal agents to begin with, were you, or were St. Paul police coordinating?
No, the federal they don't coordinate with us. They don't give us information in advance. They sort of, what they do nationwide right now is sort of just pop up on the scene and create chaos that local community and then leave, and local communities are stuck kind of trying to figure out how to sort out chaos, and so that's challenging for us, and it's unfortunate. I believe our officers, and again, there's a lot to sort through. I believe our officers got reports that somebody had been throwing rocks, that somebody had been, blocking streets and things like that. And just as I said from the beginning, our job is not to enforce immigration policy, and we don't enforce immigration policy anywhere in the city. If there's a report of somebody throwing rocks at somebody, it is our job to respond. It is our job to be there. It is our job to help to try to maintain a safe scene. And so that's what ended up bringing our officers into this space.
According to a lawyer who helped negotiate the surrender over here, this is all over a Honduras native. who had a hit and run in St. Paul yesterday. Normally that would be a police agency, not federal agents investigating, I would think. Doesn't that seem abnormal to you?
All of this seems abnormal to me. I don't have any specifics about kind of the details of this, again, because they don't share